Welcome back to Outside Views. Today we're tackling a topic that's become a real sticking point for businesses in the UK post-Brexit: the growing call to cut Brexit red tape. Ever since the UK left the European Union, businesses of all sizes have been navigating an increasingly complex landscape of regulations, paperwork and customs checks that simply didn't exist before. For them, I mean. And now, according to a recent survey by Santander, almost a third of UK businesses are urging the government to take serious steps to ease the regulatory burdens of Brexit. The survey highlights some intriguing numbers that paint a mixed picture. On the one hand, nearly three-quarters, that's 74% of businesses, are optimistic about growth prospects over the next 3 years. In fact, 36% of those businesses describe themselves as very confident in their future, which is a notable jump from 22% last year. This optimism is encouraging, but it comes with a caveat. While confidence is rising, these businesses are also calling for tangible action to address the very real obstacles they face when trading internationally. Now, why is this push to cut Brexit red tape coming up again? To understand this, we need to look at some of the core challenges these businesses are dealing with every day. One of the most significant issues is the sheer complexity of post-Brexit regulations. Ever since January 2020, when the UK formally left the EU, businesses have been adapting to new requirements for border controls, customs declarations, and even health certifications for certain products. And these aren't small changes. They've added substantial costs and timeframes to exporting goods. And for many businesses, this means navigating a maze of rules and paperwork that simply didn't exist before Brexit for them. It did exist for third countries, but not for them. And almost a third of businesses surveyed, or 31%, said that they want the government to reduce the amount of red tape involved in customs procedures, trading licenses, and the mutual recognition of professional standards across Europe. To put it simply, these businesses are finding it more challenging to operate as freely as they once did. And the timing couldn't be worse. Just when many businesses were hoping to ramp up trade and build connections across borders, they are being bogged down by complex regulations. Take, for example, the issue of customs procedures. Before Brexit, UK businesses could trade with EU countries as if they were trading within their own borders. But now, every shipment requires customs declarations, documentation, and sometimes even physical inspections. And for smaller businesses in particular, these procedures can be a heavy burden. The costs associated with preparing this paperwork and the time delays caused by additional checks are affecting their bottom line. A real sticking point has been the introduction of new health certifications. Many types of goods, particularly food and agricultural products, now need health certificates to move from the UK to the EU. And this means that not only do businesses need to produce these certificates, but they also need to ensure that they meet the exacting standards of EU regulations. And for some businesses, this has led to delays at the border, and in certain cases, products have even been refused entry into the EU. And the result is a system that feels cumbersome and inefficient, especially for businesses that had previously been able to trade freely. Then there's the issue of mutual recognition of standards and qualifications. The UK and EU no longer automatically recognize each other's professional qualifications. This means that a UK architect, for instance, may not be able to practice in any EU country without going through additional certification processes. This lack of mutual recognition affects not only individual professionals, but also businesses that rely on a workforce that can operate seamlessly across borders. The EU-UK Trade and Cooperation Agreement does provide a pathway for establishing mutual recognition agreements, or MRAs, for certain professions, but progress has been sluggish. And so far, the EU has only managed to establish an MRA with Canada for architects' qualifications, while the UK has been working on similar agreements with non-EU countries such as New Zealand. The slow pace of progress has left many UK businesses frustrated, feeling like they were operating with one hand tied behind their back. And this brings us to the political dimension of the issue. Labour's recent election manifesto has hinted that improving mutual recognition of standards with the EU could be a priority for the current government. And for businesses, this would be a step in the right direction, potentially open up more straightforward paths for expansion and collaboration with the continent. But as many have pointed out, manifesto promises don't always translate into action, and there is still a lot of work to be done before these aspirations might become a reality. Beyond regulatory relief, there is another area where businesses are asking for more government support: finding international customers, partners, and suppliers. A quarter of the businesses surveyed, or 25%, expressed a need for assistance in connecting with new markets. In a post-Brexit world, building these international connections has become even more essential, but also more challenging. Traditionally, EU membership made it relatively easy for UK businesses to access the European market. But now, as a third country, the UK faces more barriers, and businesses have to work harder to build these relationships. For smaller businesses, this is an area where government support could make a real difference, whether through trade missions, subsidies for international marketing, or support in navigating new regulatory landscapes. And it's not just about building connections abroad. Recruitment is also proving to be a challenge for many. Around 24% of businesses in the survey cited difficulties in sourcing talent within the UK. Brexit's impact on labour movement has meant that many businesses are struggling to fill roles that were once occupied by EU workers. For industries like hospitality, agriculture, and even healthcare, this shortage has been felt acutely, and businesses are calling for more support to help find and train the right people domestically. And another area adding to the complexity is the Windsor Framework. Originally designed to address trade between Great Britain and Northern Ireland, this agreement introduced its own set of regulatory requirements. The framework, or the implementation on the UK side, has been delayed several times, with the new customs processes for business-to-business parcels initially planned for October 24, now pushed back to March 25. And these delays add to the uncertainty for businesses already facing challenges with EU trade. Navigating the Windsor Framework's additional requirements is a concern for any business that needs to move goods between Great Britain and the north of the Irish island. The situation has even led to some companies scaling back operations in Northern Ireland or shifting their trade focus entirely. And the complexity here goes beyond just managing costs. For some, the constant adjustments in customs and trade rules create a business environment that feels just unpredictable. Businesses thrive on stability and predictability, and the repeated delays and adjustments in post-Brexit trade policies are making it difficult for them to plan effectively. Cutting red tape isn't just about easing burdens. It's about giving businesses the confidence to grow, to expand, and to thrive. The fact that nearly a third of UK businesses are now urging the government to reduce this red tape speaks volumes about the challenges that they face. For those who supported Brexit, the promise was that leaving the EU would free British businesses from European regulations. Ironically, many feel that the red tape has only increased since Brexit, which it did. And in closing, the message from UK businesses is clear. They need more support, less regulation, and a government willing to take decisive action to make Brexit work for them at least. For now, we are seeing optimism from many businesses, but that optimism hinges on the government's ability to address these complex regulatory challenges. And I doubt they can. But as it stands, the call to cut Brexit red tape isn't just a request, it's becoming a necessity for the survival and growth of British businesses in an increasingly competitive global market. And if you want to see another video, the next one is right here in the end screen.